Hi, I'm Alex Lamb and you're watching the fifth in my thrilling series of group selection videos. The fifth? Wow, you guys are amazing. You came with me this far. So what do we do in these videos? Well, these are the videos in which we attempt to explode the status quo of evolutionary biology, overturning decades of research in nothing more than a series of badly produced amateur videos and a simulation written by somebody who's an author of really extremely readable science fiction books, but not actually a professional scientist, but a simulation engineer nonetheless. So this time, I promised to you from last time's video, I made a promise, so this is me coming through on that we were going to get to the sinister bit, the part of our results in which we unpick some of the gritty elements of what we think we saw with group selection, because it looked in the results last time like the group selection effect was happening. But was that everything? What was really going? What were the limits on that result? This time we're going to find out. So this is group selection, the sinister bit. Well, what I can tell you, ladies and gents, is that costly kids ruin things. I don't know if you remember from previous episodes, but we had a setting in our simulation that determined how much it cost an agent in the sim to produce offspring. And we set that value to a comedically low amount. When we ramp that number up, something strange and horrible happens. Look at all of these tribes filling up with defectors you can see in this time plot. And as they fill up with defectors, they're dying. Dying one by one, ladies and gentlemen, till no one is left. Also, we see that low birth rates do pretty much the same thing, although on a longer time frame. You'll notice I've written time lapse here because what I've done here is squashed this plot so that you can see a lot of time all in the one diagram. But the same thing happens when we set the rate at which agents are being born to the same rate at which agents are dying. Everybody goes to defector land and then everybody dies. Also, if we put a living cost into the simulation, so in other words, when you have a cost for somebody doing something nice for somebody else. So in other words, in order to give their neighbour pie, one of these agents has to trudge out through the freezing blizzard of a New Jersey winter, something I personally have experience of. But anyway, that's a whole other story. The point is that if you have that situation and it's really hard to be nice to other people, the same thing happens. It kills all the tribes pretty quickly. High living costs ruin things. And also, a high birth limit ruins things. And what I mean by a birth limit is that, let's say you're born with 15 health units, like Dungeons and Dragons characters, where you get 15 health points. But what happens if the amount of health that you have to have in order to have offspring is more than that? What happens if you have to have 15 health and then go and have a wonderful time and run some triathlons and do all of that sort of stuff? Then all of a sudden, that same effect happens in the simulation. Everybody dies. But note this, ladies and gents, in that same simulation setting, this can also happen. What's happening here? Everybody's dying except this bunch, the green people. And what the green people have done is they've gotten their act together against all odds, ladies and gents. And even to the point at which their tribe is starting to split. So there's more than one green people tribe. And at that point, something exciting has happened. What we've shown here in this situation, you have a single mutation. So we've shown that kin selection can prevail in situations when group selection cannot. So there's kin selection in our simulation too. And at this point, you might be thinking, wait, what? Isn't he trying to say something about group selection? But one does not simply want group selection in one simulation. And we can forgive Boromir for invading our otherwise tidily matrix-related set of slide decks because he makes an excellent point. This is great news. If we had a simulation that only showed group selection and didn't show kin selection, we'd know that we'd kind of screwed it up. So we can ask the question, what other kinds of limits do we see on what's happening with our group selection effect? Well, so far we've never shown a situation in which defectors can actually win. If defectors can't win, if everybody always dies, doesn't that kind of suggest that the deck is sort of stacked? Well, what we can do is tune the parameters so that the defectors can win. But what we need to do that is we need to make it that the environment is so benign so friendly and nice, it's so sunny outside that the process of going and handing pie to people, anytime you even step outside your house, you basically just come back feeling great regardless of what you're doing in the outside world. So you can imagine this as some wonderful benign environment like the Florida Keys, and this is like some terrifying gated community full of people who never speak to their neighbours and spend all their time having arguments with each other about whose dog pooped on whose lawn. They're not dead, you see, they're just occasionally accidentally having mutant children who aren't defectors, and that those kids are suffering in that gated community. Anyway, you get the general idea. It's nice that we have a setting in which our model doesn't always kill defectors. So this is kind of an interesting state of affairs. But bear in mind, there are limits on our sim design too. One thing that is worth noting here is that our agents, the way we've got them at the moment, is that they can have kids from the moment that they are born. They start off with 20 health units and they only need 15 health units to have a kid. So they're not really so much like people at the moment as they are like aphids, because aphids are born pregnant. And that's a mummy aphid, and that's a mummy aphid down there, which just shows how creepy aphids are. But you get the idea. At the moment in this simulation, there's no reproductive lag. So there's only a certain extent to which our simulation is actually really, honestly, people-like. And also our simulation doesn't have any explanation of how in it. How do any social creatures get to the point that they're deciding to huddle together in one gigantic subterranean fleshy bed like this naked mole rat, where they're all just lying there like that? Anyway, you get the idea. So what have we actually shown? What do we know? If we've got the simulation, we've shown that there is a group selection effect. We've also shown there are profound limits on when that can actually happen. What do we know, ladies and gentlemen? Well, in order to find out, you're going to have to tune in, astonishingly, to the 6th episode of my thrilling series of videos, because that's when we get to the conclusions. That's when we decide what it is that we've actually discovered and how we have stretched the frontiers of human knowledge. So tune in with me next time, please, as I get to the final conclusion, the last thrilling episode in this series, and we can all walk away filled with science knowledge and a sciencey grin on our respective faces. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time.